ألف لام را كتاب أنزلناه إليك لتخرج الناس من الظلمات إلى النور بإذن ربهم إلى صراط العزيز الحميد الله الذي له ما في السماوات وما في الأرض وويل للكافرين من عذاب شديد الذين يستحبون الحياة الدنيا على الآخرة ويصدون عن سبيل الله ويبغونها عوجا أولئك في ضلال بعيد وما أرسلنا من رسول إلا بلسان قومه ليبين لهم فيضل الله من يشاء ويهدي من يشاء وهو العزيز الحكيم.
And we thank Allah, like the person that dropped the mic said, it looked like yesterday when we were looking for moon of 1439, and today in Nigeria, and that is what we want to register in everybody's memory today. And the only person that can tell us that today is what is anybody that is acting on the authority of the Sultan of Sokoto. We have so many calendars, we know. We have so many dates, but in Nigeria, today is 29th of Shaban. And so, we should all carry a while before we sleep tonight. All of you that are not late sleeper like myself, the earliest I sleep is 11 or 12. But some people sleep 9, 8. So those of you that sleep 9, 8, we have to wait for some time in case the sighting of the moon did not come early. And even when you are going to your bed, put your alarm in such a way that you wake up at a time when you have to take your zahur, so that you can check your phone to be sure that whether the moon has been sighted or not. Even at that, in the morning, don't hasten to take your food until you have confirmed that the moon was not sighted. This is the sunnah of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And nobody who has been part of this Jama'ah should breach it, because you will not be counted among the people that do not know the lay-down principle. That's the lay-down principle, that you must respect your Shah, the day of doubtfulness. Please tell the people at the end of the lecture that today is 29th, and the early sleepers should please tarry a while before they sleep to wait for whether the moon has been sighted or not. And in case anybody goes to sleep, you should even set your alarm to wake up. For those of you that do not wake up for Tahajjud, you wake up by 4 today. Set your alarm by 3 or 4 to check your phone or check the social media whether the moon has been sighted. And the moon that you want to see is the moon sighted on the authority of the Sultan of Sokoto, not the moon sighted by any other means. And 2, if that is not equally the case, in the morning when you wake up, wait for some time before you take anything. So we go to today's lecture. Today's lecture is understanding the controversies of moon sighting in Islam. All of us seated here, except the young ones, what made you be thinking about? We know what we're about to talk about anyway. But what this is going to address is that we know with the advent of technology, the controversies became complex. Because you hear the moon was given back to today. The moon has been sighted with the aid of this. Some people say all too many controversies. The controversy that we have before, number one, the people that will fix the time for it. Number two, maybe you don't know, this has been in existence for a long time. There are people that will not fast unless they see the moon with their own naked eyes. I witnessed this. You are welcome, National Environment Bombay. I witnessed this in Yola in 1993 when the then Emma of Yola, what they call it, Emma of Yola they use. After we have started the fast, 3 days after, he now sent all his Dongari, to his own soldiers, that they should look anybody they see looking for the moon on the third day, they should beat them or arrest them and bring them to his palace. Because he knew those people exist. So the controversy is not only here, they have it in the north too. One person who told us yesterday that some people, it was after 10 days that they were able to sight their own moon. And they now said, okay, today they have sighted their own moon. Say, when we have been fighting for over 10 days. So these are what this lecture is going to address. That there is no need for controversy if we follow the sunnah of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So I hand over the mic to, he has so many titles. I don't know which one to even call. Okay, let's start from the one that unites everybody here together. A former national Amir of Muslim Student Society of Nigeria. Allahu Akbar. Former Amir of the Companion. Allahu Akbar. Okay, I think I won't go beyond that. And Agbiru. The Sultan. Okay, the Sultan. The Sultan of the Companion. And Agbiru Alhaji. So I hand over the mic to Alhaji Fattah Majeed to do justice to the lecture of Islam.
Inna alhamdulillah na'maduhu wa nasta'inuhu wa nastaghfiruh wa na'udhu billahi min shururi anfusina wa min sayyiati a'malina. Man yahdihillahu fala mudilla lahu wa man yudlil fala hadiya lahu. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أرسل رسوله بالهدى ودين الحق ليظهره على دين كله وكفى بالله شهيدا. أيها الإخوان والأخوات في كل مكان، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. Forever, all praise, adoration, gratitude, and thanks belong to Allah, the ever-living. One cannot talk of a beginning when talking about Allah, nor will you also talk of an end when talking of Allah, the Lord and Creator of all. I thank Him for the opportunity He has given me, making me a Muslim. I bear witness that Allah Azza wa Jal is the only deity that should be worshipped. Aside from Him, none else. And I bear witness that Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is a slave, a proud slave of Allah and messenger of Allah. That Muhammad is the best ever created by Allah, there is no doubt about that. May we all be counted among those who sought the blessings on the Prophet, and on the day of judgment, we are also counted among those that the Prophet will intercede for, and Allah will grant the intercession. I therefore say, Allahumma salli wa sallim wa barik ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallim ajma'in. Of course, I thank the companion for the opportunity given me to address this issue. And I intend to start like this. Is today 30th or 29th of Shaban? Irrespective of what the Amir might have said, he cannot categorically say that this is a position. And that is why we should rather, I'm happy the topic you have given me is to explain. But if you have asked me to explain and you're already judgmental, it's like saying, look, do not even say anything again, you have better go. And it's not in line with the sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When there are issues that we can say, it followed this path, and it also followed this path. We lay all the cards on the table, because let me start with even the position of asking the Amir. Aside from the hadith of Abdullah bin Umar and a number of them, Abdullah and the hadith of Abu Umair, and what did that of Abdullah bin Umar, what did he say? That people were looking for the moon, and I cited the moon, and I went to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and I told the Prophet, and then the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said they should announce and they should start the fast. That of Abu Umair, unknown Arabs came, and when they came to the Prophet, they said they bear witness that they sighted the moon yesterday, and having sighted the moon yesterday, today, the fast should have ended. And the Prophet said, the Prophet did not know them, and the Prophet therefore announced that, yes, people should break their fast today and go for the Eid tomorrow. It's all position on leaders has to do with deduction, that because these people went to the Prophet and the Prophet therefore announced. But to say there is a particular hadith that you should take it to a leader other than what we have seen in this hadith, and I stand to be corrected. For those who have any hadith where the Prophet has said, do not announce the sighting of the moon until you see. It is based on, yes, why did they do so? It's for the unity of the Ummah. But this is also a period that we have actually run into problem. And the problem we are in, initially I was not going to go into that direction, is that even in the Arab world today, where they devote even more time to issues related to religion, you see leaders who behave contrary to the teachings of Islam. For instance, in one of the Arab states, a leader because when after the coming of that leader, the Jumat service that normally go on one of the stations, they have to cancel the Jumat service. And when you tune to that station today, it is football that you will see. Ditto for here in Nigeria. We have seen a number of emas, because if you are talking of emas, it's a male adulterated that has become ema. We have seen cases of ema who painted cow in the color of Arsenal. So that is why to say nobody could say whether the local or the global, it depends on part of the argument that we agree to. And that is why if it now becomes a regime, regimented and a decree, you say, of course, we all have, what do they call it, to say, look, this. And there has been some positions taken in the past by the companion. There has been some positions taken in the past. So I'm sorry I had to start from there because the controversy is also starting even from the intro. But I merely I don't want to bore you, but to remind. If you don't forget, in 2014, for instance, there were two contrary announcements, and I'm quoting from Prime Times, that initially they said the fasting was going to start on a particular day, and by 1 a.m. it was changed again. In the time past, in the recent past, we have had cause to go for Eid on Arafat Day here in Nigeria. And several other cases like that. In fact, before that, before people came up with this idea of challenging and calendar, for almost 3 decades, we were celebrating the Eid al-Fitr consistently after the 29th day of fasting for 3 decades in Nigeria. There was never in those periods officially, irrespective, other people could veer out. Officially, for almost 3 decades, on the 29th, we must sight the moon. Of course, this development is not just starting now, and it's not limited to Nigeria. And in other climes too, it has happened. And that is why, for those who are conversant with Abdul Maududi, was jailed for 3 months by Ayub Khan because of issues related, because the government of the day said it should be this. And they said, no, it can't. And 3 shuyukhs in Pakistan then were sent to jail for 3 months. There was also another occasion that they celebrated the Eid in the Arab world, and 2 days later was when they celebrated it in India and Pakistan. So this was the reason why people now develop interest to say, wait a minute, after all, before 1884, when the Europeans met and took the decision that we should have 24 hours, a lot of us were determining how to pray by measuring the shadow. But we are no longer looking at the measurement of the shadow today. We are rather talking of, look, the Alhaji will come at so and so time. Like, why can't we, since there is no argument on the fact that the moon, when the moon will be born is known, and there is no argument on that. What you have argument on is when can we see it. So that invariably got people to start to say, look, let us start to apply meteorological services. Let us also start to apply astronomy. But let me start by quoting from what Allah has said about the moon itself. My first port of call, of course, is Surah Al-An'am, chapter 6, verse 96. Allah says, Bada Uzu Billahi Mina Shaitanir Rajim, Fa'alikul Isba' Waja'ala Layla Sakana Wa Shamsa Wal Qamara Husbana. The only thing I want to use there is Wa Shamsa Wal Qamara Husbana. That the sun and the moon are for reckoning. That is found in chapter 6, verse 96. But Allah did not stop there. In chapter 10, Surah to Yunus, verse 5, Allah then said, وَالَّذِي جَعَلَ الشَّمْسَ ضِيَاءً وَالْقَمَرَ نُورًا وَقَدَّرَهُ مَنَازِلَ لِتَعْلَمُوا عَدَدَ السِّنِينَ وَالْحِسَابَ, which could be taken to be, it is He, Allah, who has made the sun a splendor, a luminous, a majesty, source of beams. But having said that, Allah said, Wal Qamara Nuran. But the moon is a light. Nuran is a light. And Allah now continued to describe the moon. After saying it's a light, he said, Nuran wa qaddarahu manasila. And Allah has measured out for it stages. Stages for the moon. Manasila. Li ta'lamu, for you to know adada sinin. So that you will know years. Allah is now talking in particular about the moon. Lita'lamu hadada sinin. For you to know years. So we can say for you to know calendars. Lita'lamu hadada sinin. Then while is and recording. And recording. Of course, again to tell us in another verse, Surah to Yasin, chapter 36, verse 39, Allah then said, Wal Qamara qaddarnahu manazila. That, and for the moon, we have also measured out for its stages. Ata'ada, until it returned. Ata'ada, kalpurjonil kadim, like a curved stalk of the date. So, Allah therefore has described this. But people went to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they asked him questions about the moon phase, just as we are discussing today. And Allah had to bring out revelation. Allah said, Yes, alunaka anil ahillah. Qul hiya mawaqitu linnasi wal hajj. That they ask you, O Muhammad, about the new moon. Say, they are fixed seasons for mankind and the Hajj. Okay? Why the Prophet was now talking about this particular verse, chapter 2, verse 189, the Asbabun Nusul, the reason why it was revealed was what I said. That was when the Prophet now mentioned the hadith that we quote often. Sumu li ruhyatihi wa aftiru li ruhyatihi. Fa in gumma alaykum sharru fa udu salafina. Aw kama qala. Then the Prophet then said, now why explaining after the revelation of chapter 2 verse 189, it is in the explanation of chapter 2 verse 189 that the Prophet now said, fast when you sight the moon. Sumu liruhyatihi. Wa aftiru, break your fast liruhyatihi, when you sight it. Fa in gumma alaykum. But if it becomes cloudy, or the cloud covers, the weather becomes cloudy, then fa'udu salafina, then count it up to 30. So when you put this together, of course, there are other hadith of the Prophet where he said, "Idha ra'aytumul hilala," if you see the crescent. "Idha ra'aytumul hilala," then he said, "Fasumu." Fast. Waidha ra'aytumuhu, when you see it again, fa'aftiru, break your fast. Wa in gumma alaykum, but if there is cloud on you, fasumu, then he said, fast salasina yawma, fast for 30 days. In all this, the Prophet is talking about when you sight, but if there is cloud, count it up to 30. But must this sighting be by me, that if I don't see it, then I do not start? Or if information has come that the moon has been sighted, then the hadith of Abdullah bin Umar came that he said, "Wa'an Ibn Umar radiyallahu anhuma qala tara an-nasul hilala that people, tarannasul hilala, people saw the crescent. فَأَخْبَرْتُ رَسُولَ اللَّهِ, and I told the Prophet. فَأَخْبَرْتُ رَسُولَ اللَّهِ, I told the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, أَنِّي رَأَيْتُهُ, that I sighted the moon. أَنِّي, that indeed I sighted it. رَأَيْتُهُ, and then the Prophet said, رَأَيْتُهُ فَصَامَ, and he, the Prophet, fasted. And in addition, وَأَمَرَ النَّاسَ بِصِيَامِهِ, and he commanded people to fast. In this particular hadith, the Prophet did not sight the moon. It was Abdullah bin Umar who sighted the moon along with other people. And that is why those who say, because there are some people who argue that you don't have to go out to sight, to look out even for the moon. There are people, when you read some of the literatures, there are people who say you don't need, we have evidence that during the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, people went out to sight, to look out for the moon. Therefore, it is in line with the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to look out. And it would be wrong of anybody. I never knew it is even the case in the north. The one I'm conversant with are that there are some segments in Ketu who, if they do not sight the moon physically, they will not be following the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi. In your own Ketu, yes, in your Ketu, so they will not be following the sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi, because the Prophet did not sight the moon. It was Abdullah bin Umar who reported to the Prophet Muhammad that it was sighted. So we may therefore not be the one to physically sight it. In another hadith reported by Abu Umair said some men came to the Prophet riding, that they were riding, that was what he said, rakiban, to the Prophet, and testified. He said, Ashhadu Allah ilaha illallah wa da'u la sharika lahu wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. After they've done that, he said, we had sighted the moon yesterday, the previous day. And the Prophet Muhammad therefore commanded people to break their fast. It was the following day that they got information. The Prophet then commanded them, break your fast and go out to and then that they should go out to their place of eat the next day. This is where we derive the, what do they call it, that okay, if for instance we did not know they sighted the moon and it got to you late, that is for the Eid, you can break your fast so that you don't fast on the Eid day and then go to the Eid the next day. And all these are sahih, which we can check. So it can therefore be deduced from these two hadiths and several others like it that one, anybody can sight the moon. Anybody can sight the moon. Two, the leader should however be informed of such sighting. There is a world of difference between sighting the moon and announcing the sighting. That anybody can sight the moon, but should be reported to the leader. It is the responsibility of the leader to now announce. But we deduce that from this hadith for the unity of the Muslims. The last one is, of course, I've said that before, one may not sight the moon, but immediately you add of the sighting, you should rely on the sighting of others, as the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam did. And all these hadiths that I've quoted are sahih. Now, I want to pause there to now say, are there uses even for the moon aside from Ramadan? Of course, I picked that of Ramadan first, which is contained in chapter 2. verse 185, where Allah said, Sharu Ramadan, Alladhi unzila fihi al-Qur'an, Hudan lin-nasi wa bayyinatin min al-huda wal furqan. Faman shahida minkum sharran falyasum. Faman shahida minkum sharran falyasum. Of course, what I want to pick from there is Faman shahida minkum sharran falyasum. Whoever sight the moon, let him fast. So we know, therefore, that in the case of Ramadan, you have to sight the moon, except the explanation given earlier. If the moon is not sighted, you count it up to 30. But it's not the only thing. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was talking about the Hajj, I cannot dress now because you say I'm Sultan of the companion and say I'm going on Hajj. I can only go on Umrah. But if it is Hajj, Allah says in the Quran, chapter 2, verse 197, Alhaju ashkuru malumat, that Hajj are in a well-known month. So therefore, you must also know that there are other uses. In the case of divorce of whole, the 4-month waiting period should be based on the movement of the moon. In the case of the Iddah, whether for divorce or for somebody whose husband died, they should also. And Allah said that in chapter 2 also, verse 226, chapter 2, verse 234. Then I went out of the religious one to say, okay, are there other natural things associated with the movement of the moon? Is it because sometimes we look at ourselves as if what we are doing is something different? And permit me to tell you, in 1988, we went on preaching to a place called Okrika in River State. The brother we asked to lead us for Salatul Zuhr started reciting aloud. And we started saying, Subhanallah, Subhanallah. The brother did not, until he turned back and said, why are you saying Subhanallah? And I told him that, look, the afternoon they don't, he said he doesn't know that too. So when we finished the prayer, the brother now took us to the ICs. He said, I'm going to show you what you do not know. What your own fathers, they look up to sight the moon, but we look to the sea to sight our own moon. Only I make no mistake about it. My own fathers, they were not Muslims. But the fishermen, they must know the movement of the moon for them to be able to fish. So when he said that, I then started asking questions until I got to know that the movement of the moon is actually tied to the tide in the ocean. When it's full, the tide will be very high. And when it is what do they call it? When it is born also, the tide will be. And this is scientifically confirmed. This is because we need to tell ourselves that Allah has designed everything, and what He has given to us is the perfect one. But the only thing is, because we tie it to religion, we now start to look at it as if it's anything different. So we needed to. And the other one, which I don't know how many people are aware, that the Easter is tied to the movement of the moon. That explains why you have March, you have April, because Easter must come after the full moon during the equinox. It is after the Sunday after the full moon that you must have the Easter. And all these things are things you can Google as I'm talking. Ask the question and it will come. But because I have to go out of the religious, what do you call it? Because sometimes we ask questions, why? It's not anything natural. And there are so many that one can quote. It was only because I couldn't check that of the trees. I see some people also came up with that. But at least I've been able, these two, you can Google and you find the answers there. So the moon is not limited to the Muslim or to religious festivals. And that we should. And we have our facts, and we have laid down our facts on. Now we can now go to, should it be global or should it be geopolitical? The only hadith, there's only one hadith which everybody quotes, and the hadith is sahih, it's sound. However, it was an incident that occurred after the departure of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and that's the hadith of Qurayb. Qurayb, according to the hadith, departed Syria after they started the fasting, the sighting of the moon. They sighted the moon on the night of Friday while he was in Sham or Syria. And he said, when I came to Medina towards the end of Ramadan, Ibn Abbas radiyallahu anhu asked me about the moon. He said, when did you sight the moon? And I said, I sighted it on the night of Friday. He asked, did you sight it yourself? Please follow that argument. Did you sight it yourself or they reported it to you? Okay? I said yes. And people cited it. They fasted. And Muawiyah also fasted. So what was the reaction of Ibn Abbas? He said, but we cited it on the night of Saturday. You cited it on Friday. We cited it on Saturday. And since then, we have been fasting. And we will continue to fast until we complete 30 or we cite it. And then, the other person, Qurayb, then said, I said, are the moon sighting, are the sighting of the moon by Muawiyah and his fast not sufficient for us? And Ibn Abbas replied, no, the messenger of Allah commanded us to do so. See, if you now look at this, this is the hadith that gives geopolitical sighting as against global sighting. But we should first locate it as an incident that occurred after the departure of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. As an incident that occurred after the departure of the Khulafa'i Rashidin. And as an incident that occurred when the Ummah of Islam, actually the leadership has been divided. One in Sham, the other one in Medina. So, I now want to pass what my own interpretation, I said the interpretation that I can give to Qurayb hadith was that one, the different sighting during that period, those who sighted it in one region were not aware of the time it was sighted in another region. Those in Medina were not aware of when it was sighted in Syria. But today, the world has been reduced to a global village. Whatever happened anywhere on the globe, anywhere as it's happening, you get information. But during those periods, they were not aware of whatever was going on either in Syria or going on in Medina. And that is the only hadith. So it should also be observed that the moon does not appear at one at the same time all over the world. I don't know what the time now. The time is 11:59. Those in Malaysia is there 6:59. They are 7 hours ahead of us. Those in a place called Nadi in Fiji, they are 11 hours ahead of us. Whereas we are 12 hours ahead of a place called Samoa. So, which means they are about now, this is 11:59, this is around 11:59 p.m. of Saturday. Today is Sunday, Saturday. So we should also take this into cognizance that the design of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is that even when the moon is sighted, the Muslims across the globe will start fasting in 2 days. In 2 days. No, that is realistically, it becomes unrealistic if it goes beyond 2 days. So this is another. So the sighting of the moon by later region. If, for instance, the moon is sighted in Malaysia, it becomes foolhardy for those in Nigeria to say we've not sighted the moon. Because the moon is only one moon that traverses the earth. For anybody in Nigeria, 7 hours later, to now say, no, we've not sighted the moon. It's run contrary to scientific. And also, whether the hadith of the Prophet or the injunction of Allah, there is nowhere, aside from the hadith of Qurayb, there is nowhere it is said that categorically. And you can't place the explanation of somebody, of course, Sahih, above the express position of the Prophet Muhammad. Sumu liruhiyatihi, waftiru liruhiyatihi. So that is why, therefore, it becomes binding on those if Malaysia sight the moon, it becomes binding on us. But if we sight the moon, you cannot be binding on them, because they have gone into the night before us. By our own 7 p.m., Malaysia at 7 plus that will be their 2 or 3 a.m. No, they have 7 hours ahead of us. Aha. So 2 a.m. So automatically they cannot start their own fasting, but we who are sighted after them, we can. So these are the logic behind the word. Then it might be interesting for us to take the extreme case between Nadi in Fiji and Apia in Samoa. The distance between them on sea is 1,225 kilo. But the difference in hours between these two places is 23 hours. So, it's 23 hours. When Apia is 1 hour into today, Nadi is already going to tomorrow. That 23 hours. See, and that is why one can therefore say, in situations like this, let me also add another one. There, since 1884, when the IDL, International Dateline, was created arbitrarily from Greenwich, that crosses from North Pole to South Pole, arbitrarily. If you cross the international dateline and you are going westward, you are going to lose a day. And I will explain that. See, that is why you can therefore not say that even we cannot apply the hadith of Qurayb. But if you are coming eastward, you are gaining a day. And let me take them one by one. A flight from Tokyo to Honolulu in America, in Hawaii, Honolulu in Hawaii, is going to take 9 hours. That is the flight time. But the separation in hours is 19 hours. So, which means, if you therefore start that in the morning, a flight that starts in the morning from what do they call it, will get there the following day. But if by mistake you travel in the night around 10 p.m., you leave what they call it, Tokyo, by 10 p.m. yesterday, you will never, on the face of the earth, you will never spend your Sunday. It's Monday by the time you arrive at Honolulu. So that person who has finished his, the other person who started his fasting in Tokyo and is going to Honolulu, but has missed a day at the minimum. It could be 2 days. Has missed a day. That person, when they break the fast in Honolulu, he will still be having at least 1 day fast to repay. That person will have to break his fast with them, but his fast cannot be complete because he has missed a day. And because he has missed that day, he will have to repay back that one after the Eid. That is where the judgment of Qurayb becomes more relevant. On the other hand, if somebody is leaving Nadi and is going back to Apia, he leaves on Thursday. In fact, the case, good, I have the case here. Said, on the other hand, the flight from Nadi in Fiji to Apia in Samoa is just 2 hours 55 minutes. Please, let us look at this very well. 2 hours, let's say 3 hours. A 3-hour flight from Nadi to Apia, what will happen? He's leaving on Thursday. He will arrive Apia at 5:55 p.m. on Wednesday. He leaves on Thursday. Thursday, that Thursday is the last day of fasting there. But now he is going home to celebrate the Eid. And he left on Thursday. From Nadi. He now go to Apia on Wednesday. No, he left on Thursday. He arrived on Wednesday. 5 p.m. on Wednesday. So, are you going to ask him to fast 31 or 32? That one, you know, what Ibn Abbas said was, when you finish your own, break your fast. And when we finish our own. So, because we and these are scientific things that we can easily prove that in the case of that person, in the case of that person, he will have to break his fast, but cannot go to Eid, because going to Eid takes all of us. So he will have to wait until the Eid day, even if it is 2 days later. The only thing is that he cannot be eating outside. To say, I finished my own, I should. So, this is the explanation that I try to give. Then there is the argument on calendar. Let us first tell ourselves, all these calendars are to serve as guides. It doesn't take the position of the sunnah of looking out for the moon. It doesn't. You see, because there are also arguments associated even with the scientifically based calendars, which I have come into. And those of us who thought the calendar in Saudi is, look, there are periods that in Saudi, I think in 2016, the date the Arafah was supposed to be on Friday. But they changed it based on the sighting, because they call it calendar Rahini, the one you sight. And they go out to look out for the moon. But the calendar, you cannot also be changing it. So they use the standard calendar used in Saudi is the Qura calendar. So that because you fear you have people and the calendar is, no, the calendar is there. And the argument within the calendar, I'll bring that up. But we should first know that any calendar, and the official one in Saudi is Qura calendar. Anything outside, there are several calendars. You can print your own calendar, but the one they use for day-to-day running, paying salary is Qura calendar. What is the basis for Qura calendar? The basis for Qura calendar is that if the moon is born before sunset. If the moon is born before sunset, and what do you mean by moon is born? When the dark side of the moon faces the earth and it comes in between the sun and the earth, that is when it is born, and it's completely dark. So then at that point, which you said is born, of course, what do they call it? The methodologies or the astronomers, they call it conjunction. When the conjunction has happened, that is when you say the moon is born. No eye can see the moon then. But the argument of the Saudis is that if the moon is born before sunset and the sunset, and the moon sets after sunset, and the sun sets after sunset, and the moon sets after sunset, then they will count that day, the next day, as one, as the beginning of another month. But if the moon is born after sunset, then the next day cannot be first. It will be another. It will be the second day now. The second day after. And I give an example of this one. The month of Ramadan. The moon, the conjunction took place 22:47 GMT, which is 23:47 Nigerian time, 13 minutes to 12 midnight yesterday. So, since the conjunction took place 13 minutes to 12 yesterday, that definitely is after sunset. And therefore, after sunset, you cannot see the moon. You cannot claim to have sighted the moon, because the moon has not even been born by sunset yesterday. It was born after sunset. So, therefore, that is why in the Saudi calendar, even despite that, they will still send some people out to look out for the moon yesterday, which was 29 in Saudi and 30 today. They still send people out to look out for the moon. So, when you look at this, why the differences now in the scientific based calendars is because of there are three set of arguments. The first argument is that of the Saudi. If the moon is born before sunset, if anybody claims to have seen it, he has seen it before sunset. The second argument, there were conferences. The first one took place in Morocco. The second one took place in Dubai. Another one took place in Turkey. Another conference, and those various conferences, there's a suggestion on ground which majority of the countries favored, that look, let us now agree that any moon sighted before midday, any moon, and not sighted, any moon born before midday, that moon can be sighted later that night. You know the difference between that and that of the Saudis, and that of the Qura, is that Qura is saying, wait a minute, even if it is sighted after noon. So, but this one is saying, if it is sighted before noon at the conference on global calendar, that is sighted before noon, then it is the moon of yesterday ending today. But if it is sighted after noon, it is the moon of today ending tomorrow. So therefore, not sighted, born. Let me continue to use the word. If it is born, not sighted, you cannot sight the newly born So those who believe that if it is born before sunset, sometimes there will be disagreement between them with those who believe that provided it is born before noon. And I give you example. The projected period that the next moon will be born is 10:03. That is for the end of Ramadan. For Shawwal is 10:03 a.m. 10:03 GMT, which will be 11:03 Nigerian time. So in a.m. So all of them will agree. Why? Because it's coming before midday, and it's coming before sunset. So if you claim to sight the moon that day, yes, based on the agreed upon principle. But one thing that almost everybody has agreed now is you cannot sight the moon that has not been born. After all, you can also not sight a baby that has not been delivered. So, whether it's born before sunset, and you may want to say, why are the Saudis insisting on sunset? Because in the Arab palace, the night precedes the day. But the argument of those who said, well, of course, Saudis were also at this conference, particularly the UAE conference, where this decision was taken, was that, look, all of us have agreed that now 24 hours has imposed. Nobody is challenging it again. We even calculate our prayer time based on it. Why can't we therefore agree that if it comes before noon, it's the moon of yesterday, we can start tomorrow. If it comes after noon, it's for the next day. That has not been resolved. So that will tell you why one calendar will read 29 and another will read 30. In addition to that, there's another one. The argument of science that you cannot after conjunction, after the new moon is born, the earliest time that you can sight the moon is 15.4 hours, which is about 8 to 9 degrees above the horizon. So that if it is less than that, then they don't believe it. So those ones will challenge the calendar for the next one, which is coming at 11:03, because 11:03 Nigerian time, it will be about 8 hours old. Then when it will be 7 o'clock or thereabout, when we try to sight the moon here. So those people will say, look, it's not possible for the eye to see it because it hasn't stayed for 15 hours. So that is where the problem, therefore, is now on agreeing on a standard between, do we take the 15.4 hours, do we take the noon, or do we take it before sunset? So that is what explains the differences in calendar. And also looking out for the moon. Anybody who claimed to look out for the moon yesterday and sighted it, nobody will believe it, because it has not been agreed that any moon that has not been born, you cannot sight. So I hope we leave that. And the other question which I want to address on this has to do with the issue of, is this moon, you look at it as big as it is. Yes. A moon like the one for this Ramadan, born, let's say 12 midnight. Don't let me say 23, 47 again. Let me say 12 midnight. If you add 12 to 12, if you add from 12 midnight to 12 midday to now, it has already stayed for 12 hours. And then by 7 p.m., it has stayed for 19 hours. If all things being equal, we should sight the moon. All things being equal. But however, not all the time that all things will be equal. In the sense that one, if Allah decides to make it cloudy, and two, if the moon is closer to the earth, it's faster. If it is away from the earth, it's slower. And therefore, when it is closer to the earth, you can see it 15, 16, 17 hours after. But if it is far away from the earth, it takes about 23 hours at the earliest for you to see it. So when you now add, if we do not see it today, for let's assume already it has stayed 19 hours. You add another 19 to 24. That will give you, so you would have to say, this sun, this moon is too big. Why will it not be too big? A moon that has stayed for 19 plus 24 hours. Why will it not be big? And just for the fun of the information, however, when the crescent appears, it takes maximum of about 50 minutes for it to appear the next day. And it will be 50, 50, 50. But it doesn't follow that plus or minus things. Again, the issue of whether the distance is far, whether it is far from the earth or closer to the earth is there. If it is closer to the earth, it's about 20 minutes. If it comes at 7 today, be sure if it is when it's closer to the earth, it will appear tomorrow 7:20. If it is the next day 7:40. But if it is when it is far, it appears now at 7, you should be expecting it at 10 minutes to 8. So you can therefore not say it must because of all these dynamics. And that is just for us, because when we start to argue about whether it is big or small and so on and so forth like that, that is now leading me to the cause of the controversy. People now started quoting the hadith that the prophet has said, and that is for the geopolitical sighting, aside from that of Qurayb, which is the base. That after all, the prophet has said, asumu yawma tasumun. Okay? Asum, brother, not asumu. Asum yawma tasumun. You fast the day you decide to fast. Okay? Wal fitru yawma yuftirun. You also break your fast when you decide to break your fast. It's an hadith of the prophet. Wal ada yawma tudahun. And that you also celebrate your Eid al-Adha when you decide. But did the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was there. There must be a base to say this is why we apply this. And this is an hadith that has been used to justify global, geopolitical sighting. It's one of the hadith. Then there is the other one said, Soli Hilal, Shaban, the Ramadan. This one is a Doif hadith. That should count Shaban for Ramadan. It's Doif. Go and check it. You can Google it now. You will see it's Doif. So, now, of course, I've addressed the issue of the calendar. Then I said, time passed after new moon birth is called the age of the moon. Sighting is possible at different age, in different months. I've addressed that. So age cannot be a criterion. Of course, not the association. Yes, age cannot be the criterion for sighting. Why is it so? Because the orbit of the moon is elliptical, and in its orbit, the moon moves faster when it is closer to the earth. And I've addressed that one. The record for the youngest moon ever seen with optic, that even you use your, telescope, goes is 11 hours 40 minutes, which means even after the moon is born, The telescope itself cannot discover it until after 11 hours 40 minutes. And this goes, the person who discovered that is G. Moonsighting of Tehran. That was on 7 September 2002. And the youngest crescent ever seen with naked eye was 15 hours 32 minutes. So all these are information that you can get. Okay, I've addressed the issue of the controversy. Then I said, when the moon is sighted in the place of, okay, I've addressed that one. Yeah. Then let me try to, therefore, the Economic Magazine, in one of its editions, summed up as follows. The issue of moonsighting is linked to Islam's lack of a central religious authority. That is, it started. In Muslim countries, the date of Eid is decided by a government, court, or related bodies. In non-Muslim countries, the decision is taken by individual mosques. Islam uses the lunar calendar, and the start of each month coincides with the birth of a new moon. Determining this occurrence is not straightforward. One area of contention is whether to take a traditionalist approach or modernist interpretation of Islam's religious texts. Many scholars believe the month does not begin when the new moon is born, but when its crescent can be seen by the naked eye, which is the Sunnah. On the night when the moon is expected to be visible, meteorological committees and ordinary people alike will turn question looks to the skies. But this reliance on concrete sighting means that something as simple as a cloudy night, can delay the 8th day. And that is in line with the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Other groups motivated by a less literal reading of the Quran argue that Muslims ought to make use of modern science. The Fiqh Council of North America and the European Council for Fattah Research, two associations of Muslim clerics, say astronomical calculation is an acceptable method, which means that dates are known years in advance. They have led attempts to create universal Islamic calendars, but to little avail. The association in the past passed a resolution some years back on moon sighting, that no moon can be sighted before its birth. This is about 10 years ago. After the crescent is born, the crescent could be sighted irrespective of its age. That was the position of the companion. I don't know the position today. Even if it is less than an hour, that is still the companion. That a baby that has not been delivered cannot be physically sighted. The moon that is not born cannot be sighted. This was the position of the companion 10 years ago. Irrespective of whoever is now announcing, as long as your announcement violates this, they cannot follow you, irrespective of your position. But if you want to reverse that, we can reverse it. But today, the development, even in the world, the argument is no longer about, everybody has now come to agree with Sheikh Shakir, who wrote his paper in 1939 that the naked sighting is susceptible to error. And he gave a lot of position in terms of what the Sharia, and he's a respected scholar in Hadith. He's an Egyptian. So I've given, so those were the things. Finally, people have classified those who are going to start this Ramadan fast into 4. The 2019 into 4. Those that follow Saudi Arabia, they are going to start on the 6th. Those that follow the sighting in Turkey, they are going to start on the 6th. Those that follow own criteria to which Nigeria belongs, nobody knows when. Those that follow local sighting, Nigeria also belongs to that. We do not also know. I hope I've explained. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun. Wassalamu ala mursalin. Walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.
Let's say Jazakumullah to the lecturer.
Jazakumullah khairan.
One more.
Jazakumullah khairan.
He has not disappointed us. He has behaved true to type, the way we know him. Despite the fact that I hope some people are not confused by some of his submission and some of his postulations. But that is the essence of the joint Usrah. Should spur us to read more about whichever topic, whichever lecturer comes here. Should show you that Islam as a religion is a religion of people that are hardworking, not of lazy people. So we cannot do justice to this topic within 1 hour that is available to him. He has to pick it here and there.
The analysis is quite apt. For the past few years, we've noticed some form of cohesion in the area of the commencement of Ramadan. And we are praying that it should be safe this year, inshallah. But I also noticed that for now, some parts of the Western states, they more or less have a fixed date to commence Ramadan, which I thought has been thoroughly addressed in the past few years, like I said. I'm only hoping that it will be safe this year, but from all permutations and signals we are getting, like some people are still poised to start Ramadan on Tuesday. Some have started already, sir. Yes. Actually, not this way. This issue will come up at the last pray on that lecture where the Sultan was there. But really, yesterday,
Please, 1 hour, what about this guy? Please do, let us into the better.
Sir, as much as we are preaching cohesion and uniformity, what's the way out? Because I thought this has been thoroughly addressed, and as the Sultan that you are called, and you belong to the Western divide, more or less, an Islamic scholar and first to reckon with. How do we continuously forge ahead with this cohesion and uniformity? Thank you very much, sir.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My own question or a kind of a clarification is in line with the last week as well. I just want Ustaz to clarify for me particularly how a Muslim in this 21st century should know about the issue of the beginning of Ramadan. Should the Muslim align to geopolitical sighting of the moon or the global? Which position do you take based on your whole expertise of the topic? Should a Muslim living in Nigeria, if they said the moon has been sighted in Saudi, is it binding on a Muslim living in Nigeria to follow Saudi or just clarify?
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We say Jazakallah khairan to the lecture, and as the Amir observed, for some of us, the subject becomes even more complicated after listening to the lecture. But I think it's quite illuminating, to be honest, because the Amir was able to bring up some perspectives that even I personally had not considered before now. The last sister that spoke, she was asking about whether we should follow My perspective, because I have a perspective, I have a contribution and I have a question. My perspective for issues like this has always been to think global but act local. And I think some of the illustrations given by the Amir in terms of timing differentials will justify that position. He told us about 11 hours away, 11 hours ahead, 11 hours behind, and so on and so forth. So I think, to be on the safe side, you act local, all right, by listening to your Amir in your locality and follow the advice. That's number one. Number two, I think also we can see the wisdom in the Quranic injunction that when we travel, we should not fast. Alright? The Amir illustrated with a situation where you are on a flight and you are traveling on the Thursday and you are arriving on the Wednesday. Not the Wednesday of the next week, the Wednesday, which means you are actually traveling back in time. Alright, so to avoid all such confusion, I think it's best for you when you travel, just suspend your fast. Alright, eat all food. Whenever you arrive at your destination, you ask them, but then by then you join them from there. So at the end of the day, you count, you make your own count. If you are fasted, so you make your own count and then just make sure you have the correct number at the end before you break your fast. Number three, and this has always been my position before now, even before the scientific explanations came about. When people of other religions ask me, why don't you Muslims, why are you not united when it comes to the issue of fasting? You are always divided. They want to use it to embarrass us. I just hide under the Quranic injunction that says the fasting is for 29 or 30 days. So I tell them, whether you are doing 29 or 30 days, the Quran already makes provision for that. So, as far as I'm concerned, there is no division. All of us are correct. Finally, my question.
Only 3 people. Well, sir, they are wondering that I was not myself. Only 3 people. Only 3 people are asking questions. So you have the time.
I'm not even asking questions.
It's comment debate.
I'm just with comments. Now, my question. I was doing a calculation yesterday on the basis that the Ramadan will start tomorrow, on the assumption that Ramadan will start tomorrow. And we were trying to fix a date for the last of the Qadr. And usually we like to fall on a Saturday so that we can go and sleep on the Sunday morning. I said usually we like our last of the Qadr to fall on a Saturday so that we can sleep on the Sunday morning before we go tomorrow. Now, if we start fasting tomorrow, the 28th of Ramadan will be a Saturday. My question, is it correct to hold Laylatul Qadr on the 28th of Ramadan? On the 9th of the 20th of Ramadan? I have heard before when people say that Juma actually starts on Thursday night. I don't know whether that is correct. So if Juma actually starts on Thursday night, then we will start on the night of the 20th.
We thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who has given us a very dynamic religion. And it continues to, the position, the laws are the same, but the development continues to modify. And let us realize that even what we are discussing today, in the future, may not even be relevant again. Why? Those who came before 1884, when there were no time, they continue to argue on whether they should measure the shadow. Who cares about our shadow today? Those who went to Hajj up to 2005, you'll be looking for the line they drawn before you start your Tawaf. Who cares about the lines today? Those who were in Hajj up to 2008, you throw pebbles at the pillar. But today, you are throwing it at a wall. You are no longer throwing it, and several other things that we can say. So, and that is why we should continue to read the Quran and ensure that our reading of the Quran will also align it with happenings today. Let me give you, for those who have read the book of Sheikh Sabiq, Fiqh Sunnah, I read it up to a point where Sheikh Sabiq was praying to God that just as the prophecy of the prophet about Rome has been fulfilled, may that of Constantinople be fulfilled. That means the conquest of Turkey, the last seat of the Caliphate of Islam, did not make Sheikh Sabiq alive. So, and that is why we should tell ourselves, let us continue to read the Quran, irrespective of the interpretation, because those who gave the interpretation, they gave it based on their time. See, we should not just decide because of people, because those who are saying our leaders, who are our leaders? Are we saying the Sultan in Nigeria? Or are we saying the one, it is if you watch Channel 2 Saudi, which is the Medina television, it is Channel 2 in Saudi today, on Fridays before they will join Jumat service. They don't join Jumat service again. It is football they play at that time. No, I see, because that is why those who are asking us to listen to leaders say, wait a minute, is there any hadith where the prophet has said, oh, I appreciate the fact that we should have leadership structure so that there will be unity. But we should also not insist, because nobody thought some of the things we are saying today will happen in the past. So now that it is happening, we should therefore read what did the Quran say first? Sumu, he said, Aman Shahida Mikum Musharan. And what did the prophet say? Sumu Liruhiyatihi. There are so many things that has changed. How many people will remember? In fact, most of us are not even here anyway. When, before the coming of this Saud, Ali Saud, before they came, in the Haram, you pray according to your Mazahib. If you are Maliki, you pray under Maliki. If you are Shafi, they are each of the four angles dedicated to each of the four. But do we remember that today? So, and that is why we should learn from history. That will continue to change. But what wouldn't change is the express instruction of Allah. Is Aman Shahida Mikum Musharan. So, therefore, the question of Shaki will continue to enlighten. In their own cases, it's good we are talking of a particular town or a particular area now. We would have been saying the League of Imam and Alpha. Thank God the League of Imam and Alpha are not coming up again. It shows that we have moved. We should not close our eyes to that achievement. In the past, we will have heard that they've announced that the moon will be sighted at Oshodi. And so on and so forth. And then when it's sighted at Oshodi, maybe because the crowd has been dispersed now, that is why it doesn't enter vehicle from Oshodi again. So we should therefore not bother. There are mosques where you sit there them, look, prayer on Zuhr is not 2 o'clock. I say, wallahi, can't do be yari. What is the point? Báwo ṣe dídò àmì? Òdìbá? Ogbó tẹ́ kéwù. Sára tún ìyá rẹ̀ jẹ́, this is Sára. Òdìbá? We are moving. And therefore that is why that of Shaki shouldn't be an issue. We should continue, because we are now talking of just a section of the Southwest. Oh, the same thing that I quoted on Prime Times 2014 was quoting the League of Imam and Alpha, that they have already fixed a particular date. Oh, but this is 2019. We are now not talking of League of Imam and Alpha again. It's an achievement. That is the Shaki. Global or geopolitical? We can be arguing about global or geopolitical today, but time will come when it wouldn't matter. Because I don't see how you convince me that Saudi that is 2 hours ahead of me, they sighted the moon, and you're now saying I in Nigeria have not sighted the moon. That doesn't make sense. Or they sight, if for instance, those in Malaysia, they may not sight the moon today. Why? Because the moon will not have stayed for up to 15 hours. They may not. And therefore they may not, and they may therefore not start their fast tomorrow. See, that we should therefore know that the express, what do they call it? Which you can say, what did the prophet say? Sumu the Ruhiyati. So if you're asking for my opinion now, if I had that they sighted the moon in any part of the globe, fortunately the moon has been born. It's not sighted before it's born. The moon has been. Me, I go with global. Because even the moon phase is one. It's not two. Oh, when you argue about the period they don't know, but we now know. How can I now hear they've sighted the moon? And I say because it's not in my area. Even they are quoted. They were not aware. And that was why the question was being asked. Did you? It wasn't that they had. But they said no, we are not going to follow. So we should read. It's going to change in the future. And that's when I read this, when I got to talk to a point and somebody said that in their own argument, that today we now use the timing to determine our prayers. For the time will come when people will say, forget about this thing. It was, and the paper written in 1939 in Egypt, the man came up, is the same thing that the conference of 2016 in Turkey came back to. Conference, the man was the supreme court, the supreme Qadi in Egypt. He wrote it in 1939. It's now the thing that they now came back to in 2016. In fact, Sheikh Kordowi had to commend it. So, therefore, to me, the issue of global or geo, of course, I've always, especially now that you can be telling when they sight the moon anywhere. You can't tell that I go with global. And well, that is because of the hadith, because of the Quran, because of even science. Because the moon is not. So, suspension of fasting during your comment. Well, Allah has given us a gift. If I like, and He has allowed us both. I said, Sharu Ramadan, Alladhi unzila fihi al-Qur'an, hudan lin-nasi wa bayyinatin min al-huda wal-furqan. Faman shahida minkum ash-shahra falyasumhu, faman kana maridan aw ala safarin. He has allowed us. But if you are not going to, the question then will be, because some of us, Ramadan, fasting in Ramadan is fasting. Fasting outside Ramadan is another thing. Fasting in Ramadan. So, if you therefore can fast and travel, why not? If you therefore travel and you cannot fast, don't fast. And they were like that even during the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They followed the Prophet. The Prophet broke his own fast. They did not break their fast. And they are not condemning one another. If you like, you fast. If you don't like, because some of us, I can fast all that time, but it's not like fasting in Ramadan. You see, and that is why, however, I am allowed, and I can use either one. That question, the person who has started that fasting should go with the time of where he started. And before his arrival, of course, the time of breaking the fast will have come. He should therefore break his fast. Wallahu alam. So, the issue of whether you are united because we start today, we don't start tomorrow, the Christian should not come up with that. the difference between the Christmas and that of the Greek, what do they call it? How long does it take? One is in December, the other one is in January. So which one is too far? The Easter is also different between the, what do they call it, and the Greek Orthodox. So it's only because if we don't know, they start, in our own case we know that the reality on ground is that we are going to start fast on 2 different days. Because the moon doesn't come to us at one and the same time. So when it comes to you, if you are past the sunset, you are not fasting. If it hasn't passed the sunset, you start your fasting the next day and the other people start the following day. So why is it? It isn't a problem. It's only for us to come to agree that, okay, whether to agree with the Saudis, if it is sighted, I mean, if it is born before sunset, or we should take before the noon. We should take one. All these other scientific 15 hours, let us throw it away. But whether before noon or before sunset, by the time we agree on that, I see us now, because everybody, no single part of the world talks about sighting of the moon without reference to the scientific calculation. No single part. So the issue of a rule of the thumb in the past, everybody has actually forgotten that, and that is why it will be limited to few areas. So the Lailatul Qadri is not a celebration. Let us first clarify that it's not a celebration. However, and that is why to say you want to do, in fact, the one you want to do for the whole night and rest is denying you, because don't forget that the cards as laid on the table, the last 10 is what he said though. Not one night. The last 10. Again, the last odd. Again, the 27th night. So if I expect a meal right from 19, I get prepared. And that is why, for those who have been on Umrah in Ramadan, may Allah count us among those that will make the Hajj and will also be able to go for Umrah. Well, not because it's a business to me. Yes, it's a business, no doubt about that. You see, but in addition to that, you will see that they respect that period. The respect they give to it, for those who know, is that one. They say 20 rakas of Taraweeh from 1 up to the 20th. From the 21st, they now wake up for Tahajjud. They don't pick just a day. From 21st night, which is the night of 20 going to 21st. From 21st night, they do Tahajjud. And the Tahajjud they do is 10. So they pray 30 rakas. 30, yes. So, because if you miss one day, you get it. But characteristically, on the 27th night, 26/27th night, fact, I mean, you can't get, if you don't go to the haram in the morning, not to go out, you can't get closer to the haram. You will be miles away, because people are occupied. So, to me, if we want to do the Lailatul Qadr, let us be doing the Lailatul Qadr in our house and ensuring that every day, even if it is from 3 a.m. to 4 a.m., from 3 a.m. to 4 a.m., because it's the whole night. Tanazzalul malaikatu waruh. He said, Layla, he said, the night is not limited to an hour. So if I wake up at 2 and I wake the entire family in the last 10, and even if it's only Kulu Allah that we are able to say, you've done your Laylatul Qadr now, and if you miss it, fine. But this this what do they call it? Celebration is limited here. So in other parts of the planet, they use the Nawafil to celebrate it, and it is the whole thing. But I know in Saudi on the 27th night, on the 29th night, those are the 2 nights that if you want to enter the haram on those 2, then you had better be there, you don't go out, because 29th night is when they do Duahu Atimil Quran. That's it. That is why. So, but to say it's a celebration, it's never a celebration. That is why, to me, God don't catch you. The Saturday itself is not Saturday. You should do the whole 10. You see, so that I don't see Haji. Don't allow him. You see, because the promotion we want for him from Allah should not stop. We'll get more. It is the last 10. I'm not going out into celebration in your own home or in your own local mosque if they do it. But if they start celebration, for God's sake, it's not celebration. So that is the issue of, and therefore, when does it start? It's the night of 29th going to 21st.
You have answered my question in the affirmative.
I said, when does it start?
Yes.
29th going to, that is the night of 20, when your fasting is 20. Okay. And then you are now it's the night preceding 21. So please, brothers and sisters, this is a month and people in other parts of the world, they don't joke about it. They don't joke about it. They make the best out of it. Please, and don't forget the hadith of the prophet. That say Amin. I say, Prophet, why are you saying Amin? Jibril has just prayed. If somebody meet with Ramadan and he doesn't profit by meeting with Ramadan, may he never prosper again. And I said Amin. Sallallahu
alayhi wa sallam. Let me give the mic to our national Amir to give us the closing prayer.
Alhamdulillah. We give thanks to Almighty Allah for bringing us safely and for making today's program a success. As we await the start of Ramadan, we also pray that all the blessings and all the Ramadan that comes with the Ramadan, we hold on maximally. And individually, collectively, we will all benefit from the month of Ramadan and its blessings. We also pray for our country, Nigeria. We pray for our leaders. The nation is undergoing a serious period of trauma. We pray that Almighty Allah will guide our leaders, and we also guide all of us, because when our country is peaceful, it will be at rest. Nigeria has been classified as one of the most traumatized nations in the world. We pray we will get over this stage. We pray that we will continue to get better, our children will get better, our families will get better, every one of us will get better. Our Father.